Well, that was not a common Bengals W. What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp. Bummer way to start the season. Not the way that I wanted to start my first common Bengals W season opener. The Cincinnati Bengals lose to the Cleveland Browns 24-3. The Browns continued to be the Bengals' kryptonite. The first half, you could absolutely blame it on the rain, but by the second half, you could no longer blame it on the rain because the Browns were getting into the end zone. The Browns were finding ways to score. The Cincinnati Bengals never found ways to score. And you could probably count on one hand the number of people that I think did even like an okay job. This was one of Joe Burrow's worst games that he ever played. This is one of the worst Bengals games I've ever watched from an entertainment standpoint, from a performance standpoint. And my gosh, like I don't even know where to start, but we can start with the rain. The rain was certainly a factor. That's why I'm not that worried about this. The rain was a huge factor for the Bengals. Again, hard to sit there and say, oh, well, the rain caused the loss. Last year, I felt like the Bengals seriously could have went 16-1. They were not going to beat the Cleveland Browns last year. That's going to be the case again this year. The Bengals were never in this game. They were never in a place, I felt like, after the first quarter where they were going to score. And their defense did the best that they could, right? Their defense did everything that they could within reason. And we'll get into that. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Deshaun Watson had a couple of flashes of brilliance, but still 16-29, 154 yards, a pick. He never showed me that he is going to be good or worth what they paid him. Nick Chubb showed me that he is as good as you always thought he was. Nick Chubb absolutely propped up Deshaun Watson repeatedly throughout this game. Over and over again, Nick Chubb is phenomenal. Despite the fact that they held the Bengals to 3 points, there were some instances where I looked at the Browns and I was like, okay, their defense has some things you could exploit, but man, it wasn't all Myles Garrett this time. And that's what I think was a big part of it. Like last time or every other time, it's felt like, man, Myles Garrett just dominated. Myles Garrett this, Myles Garrett that. He was great, but Jesus, man, like they came together and they had a great defensive game. I'll say this, bright spots for the Bengals were Nick Scott and Jermaine Pratt. Logan Wilson did okay as well. Trey Hendrickson had a big sack. BJ Hill as well. They ended up sacking Deshaun Watson 3 times. Burrow only got sacked twice. If Joe Burrow only gets sacked twice a game, the Bengals are going to run away with the AFC North. That's just how it's going to happen. Joe Burrow had his lamest game ever. Didn't throw a pick, threw a couple of them that were very close along the sidelines. He and T. Higgins were on completely different planets from one another. 0 receptions, 8 targets. Because of the weather, they had to rely on a very short passing game. And as a result, it was 14 out of 31 for an average of 2.6 yards. A lot of stuff behind the line of scrimmage, which I would love to get the stats on passes behind the line of scrimmage in general, because the Bengals have never had a ton of success with that, it feels like. By far, Jamar Chase pulled down 5 passes. That's good. Irv Smith, that first pass, I didn't think it was really I didn't think there was really a good opportunity for him to even catch that. Joe Mixon played the way we needed Joe Mixon to play. And I got a real big problem with his usage in this game. Now, Chase Brown just underperformed throughout the preseason. And I wasn't surprised that he didn't get the opportunity to be active today. But between Chris Evans and Joe Mixon, I think Travion Williams, I think they ran the ball 17 times. They ran the ball 17 times in the rain. Joe Mixon averaged 4.3 yards per carry. And a couple of those, I think, were at the end when it was just like, let's run this clock out. But 13 carries for Joe Mixon. 13 carries for Joe Mixon in the rain behind Orlando Brown. Now, keep in mind, last year, when Joe Mixon was struggling to get like 3.7, 3.8 yards per game, they were feeding him the ball way more than that. 27, 24, 19, 17. Like, that's how often he was getting the ball. But in the rain, on the road, at Cleveland, no. Last year, he played in 14 games. This would have been the 9th most out of 15 games that he ran the ball last year. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. The ground's wet. He's very clearly having success. He broke off a couple of very promising runs. Like a couple that made me be like, that's the guy. That's the guy that is probably going to go into the Bengals Ring of Honor one day. And they just, no, you know what? We're just going to force these throws and all that stuff. Listen, switch it up, man. Chris Evans, 2 rushes for 6, or an average of 6. He played all right. This was Joe Burrow's most just disappointing game. Now, I saw people say this is more worrisome than last year's game. And I said, huh? Do what? Do what? The first half last year looked like Joe Mixon just wasn't good anymore. Or not Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow. It looked like Joe Burrow just flat out sucked at football last year. At least this, you can look at the rain and go, okay. Probably not something they appropriately planned for. Thomas says, not going to say the rain was the reason we lost. We were soundly beaten. Yeah, it absolutely wasn't the rain. But I do think this is a competitive game without the rain. But guess what? Rain was there. Rain happened. Rain's a part of football. So you got to prepare for it. Browns win. Justin Lopez says it's only logic, wet weather, you run the ball. And, you know, I saw people say, oh, well, it doesn't have that much of an effect based on today and gloves. And if it didn't have that much of an effect, Joe Burrow would not have worn a glove, which he did end up putting on. Thomas Lippett says the positive is we won't be facing the rain like that every week. Game 1 doesn't define a season. Game 1 definitely doesn't define a season. And last year especially taught me that. Game 2 doesn't even define a season. The Bengals, again, I feel like could have won 16 games last year if a couple things went differently. And by that, I mean like a 1 mile an hour wind in another direction. Evan McPherson's got to make those kicks. He made the first one. He didn't make the second one. I don't have the dick swinging confidence in Evan McPherson that I once had. I don't feel like he can just show up, plop it on the desk, and say, I'm making this field goal. Not anymore. He ain't that guy. He's still good, but I don't think he's that guy. The Bengals, from a team perspective, had 5 first downs, 3 from passing, 2 from rushing. They recovered a fumble, a big fumble recovery. They had a big interception, even with a hold. Those 2 defensive plays gave you hope, made you feel like there was something possible. We'll talk about the defense shortly, but 5 first downs the entire game. Meanwhile, Dobbins punted the ball, 10 times. Cleveland also punted the ball 7 times. It was a miserable game. It was horrible to watch. Oh, my God. Just terrible, dude. Just absolutely terrible. It wasn't inspiring on any side. Brad Dobbins, by the way, or Brad Robbins. I was thinking J.K. Dobbins. Brad Robbins basically got drafted for his hang time, right? Like he wasn't necessarily a let me boot it clear across the field type of guy. But when you compare almost any of his punts to even the worst Cleveland punts, it was bad. And then the one time he was supposed to do his job and pin it, it was a touchback. He punted the ball 10 times. He got it into the 20 twice. Cleveland punted the ball 7 times, got it into the 20 3 times. The average on Cleveland's end, 47.3. Robbins, 40.9. So in the punting game, the Browns even kicked the Bengals' asses. I mean, abused the Bengals. They whipped the Bengals' asses in punting, in field goal kicking, in rushing, in receiving, even in passing. Even in passing. They let Deshaun Watson use smoke and mirrors and beat them. Insane. Meanwhile, Joe Mixon gets 13 carries on the Cincinnati side of the ball. Jerome Ford got 15 carries on the Cleveland side of the ball. So Cleveland's second, sometimes third rushing option, depending on how often Deshaun Watson takes off running. Their second rushing option had more rushes than Joe Mixon did in the rain. There were situations where the Bengals were 4th and 1 and should have went for it. And then there was a spot in their own territory where they went for it on 4th and 4, and Joe Burrow got sacked. Very untimely. So Joe Mixon looked good. He did what he was supposed to do. Joe Burrow had to change an awful lot. But if he doesn't have a strong game next week, that's looking rough. That sucks. In good weather at home, got to have a good bounce back game. Chris Evans looked good. Justified keeping him out there, or he should have ran the ball more as well. Bengals rushed the ball, I think, 18 times. We don't count the couple of sacks that the Bengals took or when they downed the ball, rather. Cleveland ran the ball twice as much, and as a result, they met a lot more success. And not a one of the Cleveland Browns had a run as long as Joe Mixon. They should have ran the ball more. It's very disappointing. It's very disheartening. And even then, they missed on a connection with Mixon twice. It did disappoint me a little bit when 5.5 minutes into the game. First off, you've got the offense that you've got. Go full on Madden mode, for the love of God. You got 17 seconds left in the half. Chuck the ball up the field 3 times and see if one of your Pro Bowl caliber wide receivers can come down with the ball, get you in field goal range, and let Evan McPherson kick a 50-something yarder. 17 seconds, I'm taking that shot a couple times. Especially when your offense had been so disheartened before that. Try to make something big happen. What are we doing? Preserving his completion percentage? Insane. They had 7 3-and-outs and 10 punts. So the defense, again, and Thomas Lippett says, thoughts on taking Burrow out with 5 minutes left. I didn't like it. If anything, he needed more reps. He needed to try to just chuck the ball up to T. Higgins. Just do it and get the ball out quick. I was really disappointed by that. I was even more disappointed that, like, this guy's coming off a calf injury. He was massaging his own knee on the sideline. Let Jake Brown throw the ball a couple times. If it's that late in the game, let him get some reps then. He looked good in training camp. If Joe Burrow goes down, it's unfortunately going to be your guy. Big time bummer. The secondary I thought was smoke and mirrors, man, because of that rain. Once it let up, they started to get exposed a little bit more, and Jesse Bates is somewhere picking off. Jesse Bates is on my fantasy team. That's what I'll tell you. I picked up the Falcons off the scrap heap because they had him, started them instead of the Jets, and I reaped the benefits of it because Jesse Bates, one of the best in the league, is somewhere else now. And I understand you got to do that to make other things work. There were some promising things from Cam Taylor-Britt, which made me very happy. There were some good pass deflections that I saw, especially the one that led to the Dax Hill interception. That one was really, really good. Dax Hill, I thought, looked good as well. You had Jermaine Pratt looking like he's worth that extension, and that made me happy. He wants to be out there for 3 downs. So that made me very, very happy. He did what he could. But then when the rain let up, the secondary started to get exposed. I feel like the Bengals had maybe 1 or 2 throws to somebody open up the field past 10 yards. And this is going to be a theme. A lot of people are going to copycat what the Browns did and what the Browns do to the Bengals. They own the Bengals in Cleveland. Absolutely own the Bengals in Cleveland. And I feel like the Browns had about 8, 9, 10 of those wide open shots up the field, like 10 plus yards up the field. Now, why the hell is that happening with the Cleveland Browns? Because it ain't their receivers. Like Amari Cooper's all right. Elijah Moore's all right. David Njoku's all right. But Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd are all, and T. Higgins are all capable. I'm not going to say Joe Mixon's better than any of them at getting open up the field because you got Nick Chubb, right? Like, and Nick Chubb's going to catch some in the backfield and run them up. But like as far as crossing the 10-yard line, catching the pass, getting open to do that, Higgins, Chase, and Tyler Boyd should be better than the Cleveland Browns are at that. Think they'll lose again next week, go 0-2, and just like last year, then go 14-1 the rest of the year. 12-5 still feels like the floor to me, barring injury. Yeah, I'm still thinking 12 wins. Still feeling 12 wins. Dominic says it's week 1, so a lot of teams are off. The weather definitely doesn't help that. Yeah, it was. I would definitely say they were off. I would definitely say that. So as we look at things, I mean, the Steelers got absolutely, they just got their asses kicked. They got their asses kicked. I just want to say, hate to see that J.K. Dobbins tore his Achilles, out for the season. Unfortunate. Never want to see somebody go down like that. Other scores from the early games in the NFL. At halftime, 10-6 Packers. Halftime, 13-10 Raiders. I think Russell Wilson's going to have a bounce-back season. Halftime, 16-14 Eagles over Patriots. Again, this is... I wish that was our game. I wish it was a shootout other than instead of what we saw. Dolphins 17-14 over the Chargers right now. Seahawks over the Rams 13-7 right now. But the games that have ended, Falcons 24, Panthers 10. Panthers are not going to be good this year at all. Bryce Young didn't look great. Jaguars 31, Colts 21. I think the Jaguars are going to be really, really good. That there's somebody I'm looking to do really special things with. Also, I just want to say, good for Baker Mayfield. He is absolutely ass on Madden. I know because I got drafted to his team. But they picked up a big win over the Vikings. The Saints beat the Titans. Good for Derek Carr getting a new start. But, man, Brock Purdy and the Niners, that's who I'm looking at right now. Based on what I have seen, I think Brock Purdy and the Niners, because when he falls, they've got McCaffrey. Jesus Christ, man. They got McCaffrey there. Plus having Kittle, Samuel, and Brandon are just insanely loaded, that team. Commanders beat the Cardinals. It's going to be a long year for the Cardinals, but they fought. And the Ravens got their asses whipped by the Ravens. So it's the Ravens and the Browns in first place. It is the Bengals and the Steelers winless. Not great, my friends. Not great. I want to thank you guys for joining me. This is going to be an abnormally short edition. I will be going to the game next week, so assuming I feel okay afterwards, I'll be doing a live stream. Steelers game was the one I had on my TV. Oh, Bears got that Panthers first pick. Oh my God, they do, don't they? I think the NFC will be a 3-team race between the Niners, Eagles, and Cowboys. I think the Eagles are going to do really well as well. How'd your fantasy team do? Okay, hold on, I'll tell you. Well, I had Chubb, so that's nice. Had him on both leagues, but I'm in one with a bunch of low-level celebrities, I guess you could call it. Wrestlers, UFC fighters, comedians, shit like that. And as of right now, let me pull it up, and I'll pull up my other one as well. I got Justin Fields. He ain't doing great at halftime. Nick Chubb did really, really good. Herbert's doing pretty well at the running back position. I got CeeDee Lamb, who plays tonight. Metcalf killing it. He got a touchdown. Hawkinson didn't get a touchdown, but 8 receptions. If I can get 11.5 out of my tight end, I'm happy. Swift, 1 point. Ugh, yikes. Really wish I would have put Osborne. I have Zay Flowers, too, who had 17 points, but he's on my bench. But the Falcons really, really helped me out. 13 points out of their defense, 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery. And then I got the kicker from Seattle, Myers on my roster. He's got about 7 points there. My bench is Zay Flowers, killing it. Russell Wilson, killing it. Ezekiel Elliott, not doing great. Fumbled the ball. Osborne, 6 points. Not bad for a bench guy. Pinero as a kicker. I do carry a kicker on the bench because of this league. 5, not great. Jets probably going to get their asses whipped Monday night. And then I've got Jeff Wilson Jr., who is on IR right now. Now, I'm also in a league with Wrestling Media. I think my Giants are winning tonight. Who do they play? Who do the Giants play tonight? Dallas? No. No, they ain't winning. They ain't winning. But I'll pull up my other league. Sorry about the dead air, my friends. Ah, hell. I got to log in. I ain't logging in. I'm doing all right on it. I'll update you on that next week. How about that? Guys, thank you so much. Until next time, we're out.